He's a familiar voice, but a new voice in the governor's race, maybe. Good Tuesday evening to you. I am Dan York. Welcome to my State of Mind. Honor and a pleasure to have you aboard each and every night. Bob Healey is my guest. You know him for years as the Cool Moose candidate for governor and then for lieutenant governor. His mission in running for lieutenant governor the last few times around was to eliminate the office. He wouldn't take any pay, all that. And then we watched him during this early campaign season deliberate as to whether he would take another run at lieutenant governor. And lo and behold, he said no. The interest wasn't there, or the drive wasn't there, the fire was in the belly, yada, yada, yada. Now he is the recruited moderate party candidate for governor. And of course, the Republican Party in the last couple of days has protested that. We'll talk all about it and a couple of the issues involved in this race. There's a hearing tomorrow at the State Board of Elections to determine the validity of the claim against Healey's candidacy, if you've got that straight. Let me go to the rundown and check on what's going on here across the board and here at home. Yeah, very, very compelling hearings in Washington today. And in the world of endorsements, if you are late, that is the answer. Alan Fung claims that that is the score in the polling data. We've got a little ditty that I think you'll smile over regarding that. The NFL is doing that. And when it comes to local baseball, tonight is that cherry on top. I hope they get it, meaning the Paw Sox. All right, let's dig in real quick. Headline on the ISIS hearings conversation. Here's what the Washington Post is saying. That is Martin Dempsey, and he would be your Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's raising the possibility of combat troops. Lo and behold, can you imagine? Here's what CBS has reported today.
Anti-war protesters shouted as Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel and General Martin Dempsey took their seats for a Senate hearing on President Obama's plan to defeat ISIS. Wednesday, the military will present the president its final plan to hit ISIS targets in Syria.
This won't look like a shock and awe campaign because that's simply not how ISIL is organized, but it will be a persistent and sustainable campaign.
In addition to airstrikes, President Obama wants Congress to authorize training and equipping moderate Syrian rebels to fight ISIS on the ground. Hagel says the initial plan is to support 5,000 opposition fighters. Some lawmakers have reservations about the plan.
To many of us, that seems like an inadequate response.
Senator John McCain, of course. You know what's inadequate? The president continuing to say there'll be no combat boots on the ground. Now, the Joint Chiefs says, listen, if we don't get these Iraqi soldiers in line and quick, we'll be helping them out, which would be our boots on the ground. And he says, if I have to, I'll cross that bridge with the president. They're all over the map in Washington on this very important foreign policy and security matter. Stay tuned. Tomorrow's another day. Coming back home here, we've got some politics problems on the Republican side. The endorsement business is a whole big to-do. Right here was WPRI.com's story. Ted Nesi wrote about Ken Block and Bob Healey. Now, the original intent of the story is to suggest that Ken Block had nothing to do with Bob Healey getting in the race. Well, Bob's my guest tonight, and he'll probably confirm that for you because he says the same thing. But inside this piece by Ted, we learned that Ken Block just cannot get to an endorsement of Alan Fung, even though he told Tim White at the last debate this.
Mr. Block, if your opponent wins, if Mr. Fung wins, will you still endorse him for the general election?
I will.
Okay, and Mr. Fung?
I will too.
Well, it was a special moment. I just, I feel a little weepy over this, but Ken Block says in this article that he just needs to get his head around the situation and is healing from the loss during the primary. Ken, listen, you're a good guy. You brought a lot to the table, and I appreciate your effort here. But this is hardball. This is football. And when you promise an endorsement, no matter what, you should deliver it. Now, if something's happened to change your mind, be clear about it and explain it. And if it's Bob Healey's candidacy that has you thinking, well, then just say, Bob Healey's candidacy, new now, has me thinking, and I'll determine between those two candidates at a date very, very soon. But saying that I'm healing and that the last campaign was too tough, and the truth is that you don't like Alan Fung, you don't like his team, and you don't want to give the endorsement. And you know what? That doesn't reflect well on you. Come on, Ken. Cheer up. Anyway, You know, when you're this late, you know what the answer is? No, Alan, I don't endorse you. Next item. Speaking of Alan Fung, you know, last night we talked about the tie ball game. Here was the WPRI.com headline. Fung releases poll memo showing close race with Raimondo, and here was the public opinion strategies hired consultant memo that said, by the way, it's 42-42 with 16% undecided. You know, we gave that a one-day run, but I just want to advise my fellow members of the press and for you and the public as well that it is faulty thinking to be running around thinking that Alan Fung is credible when he said he's tied, unless he wants to show the polling numbers. Now, this is interesting. When Ken Block during primary season told me and you that he was leading, Alan Fung said, no, I'm leading. My poll numbers are better. And I asked Alan Fung, can you show me the numbers?
I've seen data that shows that he can't even beat Clay Pell.
Since you volunteered that reference to data and the conclusion, you'll be happy to send me that poll right now.
Dan, I've never released any of my internal numbers. If you and I want to have a beer one night and I can show you the top lines, I'll be happy to do that. But I don't release my internal strategy and my internal numbers.
I don't release my internal. By the way, I'll have the beer with Alan Fung anytime. That's easy. That's an easy sell. But here's the thing. You don't release your internal numbers unless you've got new numbers that you think you want everybody to know, even though you don't want to show us how the numbers are derived, what the data is, what the questions are, and what the whole system is. Alan, phony baloney. Come on now. Come on, Alan. Consistency is important in a candidacy. Next item. The NFL. Finally coming around and thinking maybe we ought to teach these brutes that they shouldn't beat their women's. Unbelievable. The latest headline from the LA Times. Roger Goodell announces changes in the NFL to address domestic violence. Well, better late than never, I guess, Commissioner. Here's the latest.
The NFL announced the hiring of 3 women as special advisors to help shape the league's domestic violence and sexual assault policies. Ray Rice could be back on the field much sooner than his indefinite suspension from the NFL might suggest. Rice was cut by the Baltimore Ravens and suspended indefinitely by NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell weeks after he was given a 2-game suspension for domestic violence. Sources say the NFL Players Association is focusing on a clause in his contract that says the commissioner and a club will not both discipline a player for the same act or conduct.
Regardless of those technicalities, and by the way, the commissioner, Ray Rice asserts that he told the commissioner that he belted his wife. You know, you don't need video to make that a major league infraction, right? So he probably has some arguments, and I've told you that he'll probably be back on the field sooner than later on the technicalities. What are you going to do? But here's the bigger picture. They need policy and need it quick, and this notion that athletes can't turn it off because they're always asked to turn it on is, well, it's insulting to human beings, never mind men. Real men can turn it off, fellas, and you don't need to be 325 and a bruising linebacker or a rushing defensive end to prove it. Next item, last item. Speaking of real men, the Paw Sox have done it. They are the International League champions. They beat Durham the other night, and they are now on to what I think is really a cherry on top game. The International League is always the big prize, but now the AAA championship is a single game, one game. And the manager says it's just going to be fun.
We're just going to play the game and have fun with it and watch these guys, watch them because it's been terrific. I just can't put it into words on what they've done, and to be able to be in this position to play for one final game, it's great.
So they're playing Omaha in North Carolina tonight. Very strange. You get these 2 out of 3s and 3 out of 5s, 3 out of 5s to win the big prize, which is your league. But then the cherry on top is the AAA championship, and it's one game? Doesn't make any sense. So win or lose, the Paw Sox are champions. Congratulations to them. And I just checked my email. Guess what? There's a rally to congratulate them at 12:30 tomorrow at McCoy. Get on down there. That'll be fun. When we come back, Bob Healey. Is he in? Is he out? Is he in? I'm not sure. Alrighty, welcome back in. Here's the latest headline in the soap opera that is now the governor's race. Well, the governor's race has been on for a while, but we got a new soap opera in. A GOP fights move to add Healey. There he is, Mr. Bob Healey, who, Last time we checked in with you, you were deliberating as to whether you were going to run. By the way, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Did you pick up an award when you were here?
I did. They like me.
We had some technical issues
really
tonight,
like me.
and we kept Bob in the waiting room for a long time. What award did you pick up?
I got the Best Use of Humor award.
Yeah, there's all sorts of memorabilia hanging around in the green room, blue room, orange room, whatever room it is. It's not very big, but it's a lot of stuff. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So you were, last time we checked in with you prior to this latest saga, deliberating as to whether you're going to run for lieutenant governor, and you were saying, listen, no fire in the belly and not enough people signed your petition, right?
That's true, and I retired, and I had a nice summer doing what I had to do. As I told you, I was going to enjoy a summer, and in fact, I'm halfway through getting the house ready to do painting and some other things, roof repairs, and they got called up and, brought back to the majors.
You just can't... You just can't get away from this thing.
I know. I try and get out, and they just keep dragging me back in.
Yes. Where's that from?
I don't know. It's a De Niro line.
It's a De Niro line. All right. So the headline that we're talking about, the reason it's interesting to have you in here tonight is that tomorrow you got to show up at a State Board of Elections hearing or I don't know if you're are you showing up?
Actually, I am.
Yeah,
I'm
you
going
would
to
be.
but I don't have to.
You don't have to. But tell me what's going to go on process-wise, because the Republicans are arguing a couple of things. That A, this Mr. Spooner, who was the moderate party nominee, elected, I guess, in the primary.
No,
or
he
appointed.
He declared and received it, and he went out and collected 1,000 signatures.
And he got the party endorsement that way.
Well, the party endorsement comes when you have no opponents, yeah.
Right. So, yeah. I mean, he never got elected. He was just appointed.
He didn't stand for election.
But I was just trying to remember if I had a primary choice for the moderate party. No, because they didn't have a contested primary. They are a viable party, though.
They are a state-recognized party.
Because of Ken Block's 6.5% performance in the last governor's race in 2010.
That part is correct.
5% threshold met by 6.5%. So anyway, Mr. Spooner, and we have pictures and stuff, but we had a little technical issue today, folks, so we're going to be a little less some of the dress-up graphics and pictures that are always fun. But Mr. Spooner claimed a disability, which he is allowed to do. Any candidate who wins the party's nomination has a couple of day window to say, I'm not up to it, correct?
Well, actually, they have right up to the election to withdraw. The rule for this is to allow the name of a replacement to be on the ballot.
Okay. Anyway, they recruited you.
Correct.
They called you. Ken Block, who is the former creator of the Moderate Party and who moved into the Republican Party for the governorship, is much rumored by the Fung people to be the architect of this conspiracy to bring you in here. You can say that you never spoke with him, correct?
I can clearly say that.
Right.
Last time I spoke with Ken was in the second floor Senate hearing room on the Master Lever hearing.
All right, so...
And that was it might not have even been the last one. It was probably one before that.
Okay, so there was no discussion with Ken Block to leave you as a safety valve. By the way, I don't think Ken Block would have dumped nearly $1 million into his campaign only to have you as a backup run. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Anyway, the chairman of the party, who is Mr. Gilbert, got together with you about 10 days prior to this window, correct?
Called me up, said, do you mind if I talk some political stuff? And people always call me and want to talk political. I said, sure, I'll talk politics, anything I can do to help. About a week later, he calls me back and we set up some kind of, we had lunch at Rod's Grill in Warren, my favorite location. And started going back, and he said his candidate was not feeling well and they were thinking about doing something with a replacement. His candidate had hip surgery, thought he was going to recover enough to get onto the campaign trail. Apparently didn't, has other problems, complications, and other issues on top, which I'm not going into.
Okay.
But he qualified for the disability.
So the technicalities are interesting. The Republican Party claims that Mr. Spooner conditionally undesignated himself, meaning that he put in writing that if Mr. Healey couldn't take the mantle, that he would continue to be the nominee.
I don't think
true?
Mr. Spooner did that.
You don't?
No.
There's no proof of that?
It's up to them, but I'm not going to argue their case.
Okay. You got to show up at the Board of Elections tomorrow. I wish we were talking issues here, but you got to show up at the Board of Elections tomorrow and defend against the Republican Party's claim that this is a faulty process, correct?
That's correct.
Do you expect this to be a long, drawn-out hearing? Do you think this will be one fell swoop? Is it quick? Is it dirty? Is it long? What is it?
I think it has to pretty much conclude by the end of the day tomorrow. Whether we're there late or not, I'm not sure.
Okay.
The Supreme Court has to probably have an opportunity to touch it, because I imagine whichever side loses is probably going to at least take the appeal.
Okay.
So I know the Supreme Court has probably already been told that they have a hot issue coming up to them. The Justice Department of the federal government has already told the Board of Canvassers, the Board of Elections, that they have to have the ballots printed by Saturday because they have a 45-day compliance with the Military Act.
Okay. So time is of the essence.
It's going to be done by the end of the week. That part I can guarantee
And your
you.
confidence level that you have been correctly placed on the ballot for the moderate party is?
Oh, before today, it was probably at 80%. Today, it's probably moving closer to 90 to 100.
Okay. All right. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. When we come back, we'll find out what Mr. Healey would say if he was authorized to be the candidate. Stay with us. By the way, during the break, Bob, Healey, and I were kind of talking about the other complaint by the Republicans. I will get to issues in a second, but the other complaint by the Republicans to be heard tomorrow by the State Board of Elections and possibly the Supreme Court against the moderate party, and you're being nominated as the gubernatorial candidate, is that the organization is not correct, that the leadership is not accurate and the like. But you're telling me that anybody, when Ken Block stopped running the moderate party, that anybody could have seized the moment, and this guy, Mr. Gilbert, did, correct?
That's correct. As chairman of the Cool Moose Party, when we went through organization and deorganization, I realized that. First convention of the Cool Moose Party, when we finally became a recognized party, I was afraid because we only had about 40, 50 members at the time. You know, somebody with 100 people could come in, raid the convention, and take over the party. It was scary to me, and I can remember it. So I know those rules pretty well.
Right. So you're very confident that you will maintain your position as the moderate party guy. Let's talk about a couple of things we talked about on the radio. Any trepidation, feelings of anxiety, guilt, remorse, or any of those kinds of things about having not done a lick of work at all during all of this primary season and now being on somewhat equal footing with the Republican and Democratic winners?
Well, I think it's incumbent upon me to do my homework and be able to catch up to them in terms of where they are on issues and all of that. It's not like I'm sitting there every day doing the homework and planning and doing debate strategies and where I'm going to be and position papers and what have you, anticipating a dropout. I mean, a week before this happened, I was contacted to consider it. I considered it, and I readily admit, I waited till knowing what the deadlines were. That's the rules. I didn't write them. The Democrats and the Republicans wrote these rules.
Sure.
You know, I always, as I say in my campaign journal, use the rules. And I did, and I don't feel guilty about it. I don't think it was wrong. As long as if the Board of Elections holds it up, fine with me.
I have called you a disruption in this race.
Big.
Significant disruption. You have equity in the state. You have a reputation for being sincere about your arguments on the matters. You are a very smart guy. Everybody knows that. And you're no gadfly. The only thing that's strange about this gubernatorial run will be that there won't be any money in it. I mean, you are
not on my part.
So you keep saying that to me. So are you aware it's illegal to coordinate with PAC interests,
I understand
right?
that.
So
I understand.
Are you guessing that there'll be folks who will advertise on your behalf?
That's up to them.
You're not going to raise any money in donations.
I'm not raising money.
And you're not putting any. I mean, you're a man of substance financially.
Yeah, I paid $8. Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. But I preach austerity and I live austerity. So it's not what you earn and what you have, it's what you spend. It's really how I look at life.
So you're not writing any big a la checks. There's no big block checks. There's no big Pell checks. No. There's no check coming in.
There's no check.
So we may or we won't.
Money is the worst thing in politics.
We won't see paid for by the moderate party, or I approve this message, television ads at the end. Well, the party might.
I have no idea what they're going to do.
Okay.
I don't think they have any money either, but I mean,
So how
they're doing it outside of me.
Well, you're going to come back sooner than later in a lot to talk about the issues, and we're going to run out of time on the issues. But the structure of this whole thing, you are going to run an internet campaign of sorts.
Yeah, I think that with the campaign journal that we have, I'm telling the strategy that we're using from the inside. Every day there's a posting. In fact, as I say, for tomorrow's lawsuit, if you go on,
what's the site?
It's Bob Healey's Campaign Journal.
Okay.
Tomorrow you go on. .wordpress.
.wordpress.
But if you go on tomorrow at 3:30, as soon as I start the hearing, it's going to post what our strategy is and all the proof we have.
All right, less a field team, like, you know, and less an advertising campaign. You are going to put your full effort into this race.
Yes, it's 2 months. I can do that.
To win?
I could do
or
that.
to prove a point?
Both.
What would be the point?
The point is that I think the government has to get back to its basics. There's a need for austerity. There's a need for efficiencies. There's a need for consolidation. There's a need to bring people together. The money in politics separates people. They take extreme positions so that they can get campaign dollars and they can get campaign support. I think Rhode Island needs to come together with common sense solutions, and that's about the end of the story.
And do you actually lay awake at night thinking you could be the next governor?
It's not one of the high priorities of my existence, but I think it could be done. I think I could govern, if that's your question.
No, I don't have any doubt about your acumen for governing. I'm just wondering about how you actually get into this thing on a competitive level at the end.
Quite honestly, the end is going to be the issue, because as in the lieutenant governor's campaign, Liz Roberts ran $500,000 of negative ads against me in the last 2 weeks. Remember the Healey?
Yeah. And what did you get, 39%, something like that?
39%. I mean, I'm sure there were internal polling. We didn't have money for polling, but I'm sure her internal pollings told her that we were doing a little bit better and she needed to get back.
All right. Enjoy your hearing tomorrow and come back as soon as possible. We'll talk some issues if you pass muster.
Let's see how it goes.
Bob Healey, your state of mind when we come back. See you later.
Don't move.
You know how to get in touch with us. 228-1886 is the telephone number, and you can email and Facebook post and tweet. Can we put up this Facebook post? No, we're out of time. I took too much time trying to figure out the complications of the Board of Elections hearing tomorrow with Healey. Oh well, there's always tomorrow. We'll see you then at noon on the radio on WPRO and back here at 7:30 with Jorge Elorza. Bye.